Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me all right? Okay. I have to tell you that Angel of Darkness is actually one of the more polite nicknames that's been given to me. Combating light pollution. Whoops, boy, I've jumped way ahead here without intending to. My title at McDonald Observatory is Special Assistant to the Superintendent, and a big part of my duties are to keep the skies dark for McDonald Observatory, which in recent years has become a challenge, largely due to oil and gas activity in and around the Permian Basin. Now, I'm going to talk to you about that and how we've been working with oil and gas successfully. But, well, I should begin by saying that it's a relatively new issue, a relatively new phenomenon, this whole question of light pollution. This is a photograph taken from Mount Wilson in 1908 of the city of Los Angeles. It's true. You know, a couple of decades earlier, you would have been more likely to smell LA than see it as you approached it. But with the proliferation of the electric light bulb, light pollution has become a major concern. And I'll advance this 100 years to 2008, and you can see the difference between 1908 and 2008. So it's only really been the past 150 years or so. What? Edison invented the light bulb 1878, I think. So he was a great salesman. The brighter, the better. So in and around our major population centers, we just don't have dark skies anymore. It's just the truth. So Preserving the Starry, Starry Night was the title given to my talk. So ask yourself, what if Van Gogh were alive today? All right. Would he be inspired to paint Starry Night? Again, anybody know where this was painted? Southern France. Where in southern France? Not Arles. Saint-Romain. Show you a light pollution map of France, identifying Saint-Romain. Now, I couldn't get to sleep one night thinking about this, so I got out the forger's brush in Photoshop and went to work on Starry Night and figured that if Van Gogh were alive today, Starry Night would look something like this. You think? Yeah, well, if Van Gogh were alive today, he'd probably sue me, but anyway, that's another story. So here's the trends. The only real data here is the 1997 data. The rest has been extrapolated backward and forward based on census data. In fact, the United States Census uses light as seen from space as one means of plotting population growth. So the projection forward and backward, it's based on the assumption, well, two basic assumptions. One is the rate of population growth remains the same, it's constant, and that the way we light at night, our outdoor lighting practices, will remain the same. And I think, well, both are questionable, and certainly in recent years we have started to change the way we light at night. In particular, the LED revolution presents a tremendous opportunity if the technology is implemented correctly to make a big difference on where light goes when it leaves a light fixture. But that's a topic for another presentation, so stick around here. Here's United States at night, again, 1997 data. Suffice it to say that the places where you can go to see a naturally dark nighttime sky are vanishing. They're becoming fewer and farther between. I don't know if it was exactly worded this way in one of the trivia questions, but 99% of the world's population live under conditions with some degree of light pollution, okay? About 2/3 of the world's population live under conditions where they cannot see the Milky Way. One of the bright spots on this, if you'll excuse the pun, in all this is that at the center of many of these really very dark locations that are still left, there are parks. Our National Park Service is superimposed here in the purple. And the National Park Service and most state park systems have taken on the night sky as one of the resources that they are now tasked to preserve. Our National Park Service is very active. I'll show you some instrumentation, the results of some instrumentation that they've developed for quantifying light pollution. And I should also add that Texas Parks and Wildlife has really jumped on the bandwagon. Director Brent Leisure, Director of Interpretation Chris Holmes, from leadership on down, have adopted the night sky. In addition to land, water, wildlife, flora, and fauna, they have adopted the night sky as one of the things to be protected. So we've been working with Texas Parks now for a few years. They've been sending park rangers out to McDonald Observatory for workshops. Here's a photograph of our educational coordinator, Mark Wetzel, leading one of those workshops a couple of years ago. We do 24 rangers at a time. We just finished one a couple of weeks ago. We've actually covered rangers from 80 of the 95 parks in the state of Texas. It's a 3-day, 2-night residential workshop at McDonald. And they leave with all kinds of hands-on activities. The Park Service has provided them with small telescopes and binoculars and star charts, and we give them all kinds of activities to do with the public at night. And one of the conditions, or one of the understandings in this relationship we have with Texas Parks is that if they're going to be doing night sky programming in the parks, they are also going to want to adopt dark sky friendly lighting practices in the parks so that they can see the sky. So lots of parks have been retrofitted with dark sky friendly lighting. In fact, Enchanted Rock and Copper Breaks. Enchanted Rock and Copper Breaks at the same time were both awarded the designation of International Dark Sky Park by the IDA, the International Dark Sky Association. And let me just show you a little map here that puts Enchanted Rock at the center. And you can see the distances out to some of the major sources of light pollution. But Fredericksburg at 16 miles away, and then San Antonio 77 miles away, they show up really well. But what's very, very interesting, we've got kind of a circle the wagons effect where the park services are pushing back against the sky glow that's impinging from surrounding communities. I can tell you that within the year and a half or so since Enchanted Rock was designated as an International Dark Sky Park, the cities of Fredericksburg first, then Mason and Llano have all adopted outdoor lighting ordinances to help keep the skies dark for Enchanted Rock. So we can hopefully kind of turn things around a little bit and certainly raise awareness. That's what it's really all about as far as outdoor lighting. The lighting well to preserve the night sky is just a matter of people seeing that it's in their best interest to do so, and it happens to be in the best interest of seeing the sky as well. So here is some all-sky photometry that was made from Enchanted Rock, from the small rock, that shows, well, this is a system developed by the National Park Service. Chad Moore, Dan Dorisco in particular, developed an apparatus that would take a panorama of the entire sky, the 360 degrees around the horizon up to zenith, the entire sky, and then given your location and your time, you can see the Milky Way in here. It models out the natural sources, whether it be the Milky Way, zodiacal light, and so on, and subtracts the natural sources, leaving only the anthropogenic light, only the man-made sources, the artificial light sources. Now, this wasn't taken under the best conditions. There were some clouds, so the data is not completely clean, but there's Fredericksburg at 15 miles, and then this big dome is 77 miles away to San Antonio, okay, with that data. So it's really a striking methodology they've come up with for documenting, and this is measured in magnitudes per square arc second, by the way. It's quantifiable. It allows us to keep track of how sites are changing in terms of the sky, although you really need good, clear conditions to do it well. All right, now fast forward a little bit here to McDonald Observatory, to West Texas and the 7 counties. Well, counties in Texas, first off, don't have any legislative authority, all right? But in 1978, I mean, they can collect taxes and they can pave the roads and that kind of stuff, but they can't pass any laws. But in 1978, former Governor Clements signed a bill into law that gave these 7 counties surrounding McDonald Observatory the authority to enact outdoor lighting ordinances at the request of the director of McDonald Observatory. 6 out of 7 of those counties did so voluntarily over the years. Although when I first went to work there in 1990, Jeff Davis County was the only one that had adopted a lighting ordinance at that time. So it's been a long slog over the years, but in 2011, former Governor Perry signed a bill into law, much to my amazement, that changed the language that from these counties may adopt outdoor lighting ordinances to these counties shall adopt outdoor lighting ordinances, making it mandatory. So Reeves County hopped on the bandwagon, and so all 7 counties surrounding the observatory and all of the cities within, we're still working on, save one, Del City up here. We're still working on Del City, but they are interested. They just have one holdout that's slowing things down. But you've got, that area shaded in blue covers 28,000 square miles. This is by far the largest contiguous piece of land in the world whose skies overhead are protected by law. So we're very excited about that. Now, 2008, improvements in horizontal drilling techniques in the oil and gas industry. And the next slide shows 5,000 permits to drill let by the Texas Railroad Commission within the 7-county region. So that's 5,000 permits over a 5-year period of time. Looking this direction, let me show you some satellite imagery here they'll show you what's basically happening. This is 2010, and this is a kind of a low-res satellite. It's the old Defense Meteorological Satellite Program. El Paso here, just to give you your landmarks, Odessa, Midland just out of frame, the Big Bend National Park, Presidio, McDonald Observatory, and I'll call your attention to the city of Pecos. And again, this is 2010. Let's fast forward 2 years to 2012. And you can see a dramatic increase, and all of that increase is coming from oil and gas. Now, switching over to the VIIRS satellite to 2012, basically the same data, but just much higher resolution. It's not quite the same data, because I can tell you that these 2 spots west of the observatory are the Mount Livermore fire and the Tejano Canyon fire, which were wildfires that were burning at the time. So I can tell you this was April of 2012. Those fires are long since out, thank goodness. But there's more going now out there right now, actually. But at any rate, so this is the higher res stuff from 2012. Now fast forward to 2014. And you can see a dramatic increase from 2012 to 2014. Now, I've had people come up and say, well, okay, the bottom's fallen out of the market in oil, so you don't have anything to worry about from oil and gas anymore. Not true at all. I mean, first off, they've been blowing and going for about 8 years and drilled a lot of holes and got a lot of product out of the ground, and there are thousands of flares. There are thousands of natural gas flares burning out there, and there's a whole lot of production still going on. I've mostly had access to the exploration side, the drilling side, but there's a lot going on in production in terms of saltwater disposal wells and gas separation plants and all that kind of stuff, which have permanent lighting installations, whereas an oil rig is kind of temporary or at least mobile, depending on the level of activity. It's moving around a lot. But when we look from McDonald Observatory to our northeast up toward the Permian Basin, this is what our horizon looks like from the 107-inch telescope. This glow here, this big dome of light wasn't there 5-6 years ago. It just started creeping up on us. Now, given our elevation, there was a trivia question in there on the elevation of McDonald Observatory. Anybody get it? 6791, by the way, not 6790. All right, but I caught that at least. So given that elevation, say let's round it up to 6,800 feet above sea level. Here's our horizon distance, okay? It's 6,800 feet above sea level. given a perfect horizon, we could see a set of car headlights out to 100 miles. 110 miles, they'd be over our horizon and invisible. We wouldn't see them, okay? So at a 100-mile radius, given a perfect horizon, that purple circle is a 100-mile radius around McDonald. So we would be seeing lights out to the suburbs of Odessa up here. We would be seeing a sea of lights. So again, when we look out, we're very, very glad to be ringed by mountains. Otherwise, we'd be looking at bare, naked lights, gas flares, drilling rigs, all kinds of permanent oil and gas installations, and it would be extremely bad for morale for astronomers observing out there. So I got a hold of the National Park Service all-sky photometry system, by the way, and last August did a measurement at McDonald. Again, here's the raw data that shows all light sources. Then the Milky Way gets subtracted out, and this is what's left. And I can tell you that, 6-8 years ago, for the past 70-odd years since McDonald Observatory was founded, and by the way, another trivia correction, I have to. It was founded in 1932. That's when the site was chosen. The 82-inch telescope was dedicated in 1939, but the site was selected in 32, and McDonald Observatory started work then. At any rate, here is a close look. For about 70 years since the place was founded, this was the brightest thing in our sky, apart from the sun and the moon. Okay, El Paso, Juarez, 160 miles away, well over our visible horizon. Now you can see the Permian Basin swamps it. So it's bad news, yes, but a different projection measuring the overall intensity at different locations. There are locales down near the northeastern horizon where the background sky is over 200% above natural. However, averaged out over the entire sky, the sky is up 10% above natural background. So the skies at McDonald Observatory in recent years have brightened 10%. Okay, it's still a very, very dark sky. It's still very competitive and very comparable to the darkest skies around, to any major observatory, certainly, in the world. So still very competitive, very, very dark. Did I mention there are a lot of players in the oil and gas industry? There are lots of fingers in the pie, and this is just a small portion of them. There are hundreds of operators, hundreds of vendors, hundreds of contractors that are all trying to get a piece of the action out there. I have attended an alphabet soup of trade conventions and conferences and what have you, and spoken to a large number of people. If I'm fortunate, I can get to speak to the whole room at once. More often than not, I carry my little laptop around and just cold handshake and say, hey, can I show you some pictures? And start talking to them about outdoor lighting. So what's the good stuff that's come out of this, formally anyway, the counties surrounding the observatory all wrote letters to hundreds of operators with permits to drill in their counties, informing them of the existing outdoor lighting ordinances and asking them to light their nighttime activities accordingly. The Permian Basin Petroleum Association in Midland did the same thing to over 500 of its members. And then just last February, the Railroad Commission of Texas sent out a notice to operators. That wasn't an easy thing to do, by the way. Being a state employee, I'm not allowed to approach elected officials about legislation or regulation. So it's one of the groups that I spoke to, TIPRO, Texas Independent Producers and Royalty Owners, basically landowners with deep pockets and mineral rights, right? I did a presentation to their president and his staff, and he set up a meeting with the Railroad Commission and asked McDonald Observatory to attend it for informational purposes. And shortly thereafter, the Railroad Commission issued this notice to operators, and it has gotten everyone's attention. Yeah, how about that? Now, enter Pioneer Energy Services out of San Antonio. Stacy Locke, the president of Pioneer, needs a real big pat on the back. He and his wife have a ranch out near Marathon, Texas, north of the Big Bend National Park. And he waxes poetically about being able to see the Milky Way horizon to horizon, and he thinks it's worth protecting. So he said, okay, here's my rig fleet, here's my fleet of drilling rigs, see what you can do with the lighting. All right? So I got my fire retardant coveralls and my steel-toed boots and my hard hat and went out to the drilling. Oh, and I shaved my beard, too. First time in 30 years, but had to do it. Anyway, this is the first rig I visited, and this is very typical of the kind of lighting that we see in the oil field on drilling rigs. Floodlights aimed at high angles, and then these what they call explosion-proof lights, which are basically just glass globes with a wire mesh around them. And at night, they look like this from above. When you see the bare naked light bulb from above, you're seeing light shining upward into the sky, so not good. And when you look off property, off site, this is what it looks like. You know, a tree a half a mile away that's well lit, lots of light scattering, lighting up the countryside and shining up into the sky. But this was pretty cool. On first day on the rig, this is the driller who operates the machine, and he pointed out this blast-proof light that he'd stuffed a rag up in. Because from where he stood to operate the oil rig, now I'm not getting, there we go. This is the control console here, the dials and levers and the gauges that he needs to see, and that is that light with the rag installed, I might add. The glare was blinding him, so he couldn't see the gauges he needed to see to operate the rig safely. So what was his solution? Stick a rag in there. Okay, so when I saw this is the smoking gun. Okay, thankfully it wasn't a smoking rag. All right. At any rate, what we did was identify the make and model of the light fixture, and sure enough, the manufacturer offers optional shielding. All right, so Pioneer Energy ponied up and bought some shields, and we installed them on some lights. And from the driller's point of view, he's a happy camper with the shields on the lights. Okay, he could see what he needed to see to operate safely. So they shielded the whole rig. All right. Now this is an old rig. It's since been auctioned off and it's gone to Mexico. But Pioneer Energy has added 3 new rigs to their fleet, and they have chosen to use LEDs, and they are aimed down. And this is what that light looks like. So I'm not going to go into the intricacies of what makes for good lighting and bad lighting, but here we're looking from above down on the light fixtures, and you do not see the light sources. Okay, you see a well-lit work surface, but you don't see any light from above, so it's not shining up into the sky. So this is really, really good lighting. Now on the production side, got access to a major gas plant called the Triple Crown. It belongs to Cimarex Corporation, who also deserves a pat on the back. It's just east of the Guadalupe Mountain National Park, and what they had were 36 poles. Each pole had 4,000-watt metal halide light fixtures clustered around them, all aimed to high angles, okay, lighting up the countryside for miles around, literally. We asked them, would you please just aim them down, which they did. And this is the result. The light that was spilling off their property, spilling off site, lighting up the countryside, is now down on their work site, and they can see better. They've got less glare in their eyes. So again, it's a matter of convincing them that adopting this type of lighting practice is in their interest. And oh, by the way, it helps to protect the night skies overhead. So we're very encouraged about what we can accomplish in the future. We're concerned about the 7-county region, but we really think we can get the industry to actually change the way it lights its nighttime activities, industry-wide. Everybody recognize the Guadalupe Mountains back here? Yeah, cool. So anyway, okay, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to start with one question from Twitter, which is what, and I'm going to add, if anything, is Austin currently doing to combat light pollution?
Oh, golly. I'm not really an authority on what Austin is doing. I know that Austin is changing out a number of streetlights, 20,000 or so streetlights to LEDs. Most major cities around the world actually are converting to LED technology because it consumes maybe 10 to 20% of the power, so they can save a lot of money on their electric bill. Unfortunately, what we have is an example of technology outpacing the procurement process. What cities have done, many cities have done, is to retrofit to LEDs, but they've chosen early generation LEDs that were 20% or so more efficient. They're very, what I'm trying to say is they're very white, blue rich light, which scatters more in the atmosphere and which actually is hard on the eyes. Anybody ever driven down the highway and had a set of blue headlights coming at you? Blue light is not good for nighttime vision, okay? It just causes your pupils to constrict. It creates a lot of glare. But cities are going with early generations of LED technology, which are very blue rich. Later generations of LED technology, which are cooler, a lower color temperature, say around 3,000 degrees Kelvin or 2,700 degrees Kelvin, comparable to what an incandescent bulb would look like, as opposed to what the bright white LEDs look like. Now that technology, it used to be that it was 20% less efficient than the bluish stuff, but now the warmer stuff is just as efficient. So what we're trying to do is get cities to slow down, do their homework, and choose a more pleasing form of light for their community. I know the city of Davis, California is a great example. They had installed blue-rich LEDs throughout town, and people were complaining, especially in residential neighborhoods. So what they did was they went with the lower color temperature LEDs, the warmer white light, and they lowered the lumen output, which means they lowered the wattage input, so they ended up saving money and paying for the retrofit in the process. So it's still, the mess can still be cleaned up. It's just better to stop, not make the mess in the first place.
Okay, we've got a question from Brian.
Yes, sir. I work offshore on oil rigs in 2001, and we lit the rigs up an awful lot. And the flares were unbelievably hot and bright. So it's like, my question to you, sir, is in the Permian Basin, is more of the light from flares or from lighting up the equipment?
Okay, good question. Is more of the light from flares, or is it from lighting up the equipment? I'd say right now more of it's from flares. It's really hard to quantify that. I mean, I'd have to do some spectral analysis of the sky glow to figure that out. But I've taken some photographs from Carlsbad Caverns looking out over the Permian Basin to the east under a condition of high clouds, and there's a definite orange cast that's predominantly orange as opposed to the man-made light that's typically metal halide and bluish white in color. So a lot of gas flares. The thing is, you can burn the gas off inside a combustion chamber and not see any light come from it at all. But there's no economic incentive for the industry to do that. Now in North Dakota, in the Bakken Shale, North Dakota has set limits on the amount of the volume of gas that can be flared before they start to be penalized. And lo and behold, they have no shortage of creative things to do with that gas. Recycle water for the next job, generate electricity for the current job, and so on, or use combustion chambers. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that wasted gas. They'd much rather sell it. They'd much rather get it to market and sell it. It's just the price is so low, there's no economic incentive to do it, so they just burn it off. It's a byproduct of a producing oil well. Okay. Yes, sir. How much light pollution would be reduced if we went to better street lighting? I can't really say other than addressing street lighting. The measurements show that about 1/3 of the sky glow you see over any major city is coming from street lighting, municipal lighting. Okay, the other stuff gets thrown in there. 2/3 of it, I'm not sure. Okay, but again, with the LED technology, if it's designed into a fixture that directs the light down into the sides and the color temperature is kept low so it doesn't scatter so much in the atmosphere, we have a great opportunity to relight and do it well. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You're driving this thing, aren't you? Okay.
Are there any private organizations or donors that maybe are investing in helping maybe some of these municipalities make changes faster?
Okay, any private organizations or that you could donate to help? Yeah, there's an organization called the International Dark Sky Association, headquartered in Tucson. Been around for 26 years now, and they have a huge staff of 4 to combat this problem. But they are the ones that accept the applications and award, like Enchanted Rock or Dripping Springs is an international dark sky community. Next time you're driving through Dripping Springs at night, look at the lighting. That's the kind of light we're trying to promote. Okay? It's not an anti-light campaign. We're in favor of good outdoor lighting.
All right, we're out of time, but we do have intermission coming up, so feel free to keep asking Bill questions then. I'm sure he'll appreciate it if you buy him a drink at the same time. All right, so let's say thank you very much again to our Angel of Darkness.